In late June of 2024, two teachers who worked at a Calhoun City High School in Georgia were charged for having relations with multiple male high school students. The incidents at the forefront of which were Rayleigh Greason and Brooklyn Schuler, both aged 23, took place between October the 29th of 2021 and January the 3rd of 2022. During that time, Greason was intimate with two students, while Schuler had intercourse with a different male student. By the time that they were charged, both women were married. Greason served as Schuler's maid of honor in her November 2022 wedding, and the latter did the same at Greason's wedding in October of 2023. Greason described Schuler as her best friend and her ride or die. When the charges came to light, multiple parents reported that they weren't surprised. Audrey Decker, whose stepdaughter attended the school, spoke to the New York Post and described the two women, saying, "They just seemed boy crazy, and everyone in the school knew it and joked about it." Another parent, who asked to remain anonymous, said they were shameless, adding, "You should have seen them with any attractive parents who came to the school. They would flirt with any of the dads." The students with whom the teachers had had relations were reportedly above the age of consent, which in Georgia is 16. The accusations were thus centered on their status as school district employees, and they were charged with sexual contact by employee or agent in the first degree. Greason and Schuler, who were released on bond, faced up to 25 years in prison or a $100,000 fine. Number 8. Kristen Williams. An employee of Heritage Middle School in Deltona, Florida, was arrested in December of 2021 for smoking marijuana with a teenage student. 41-year-old Kristen Williams worked as an office assistant and was a mentor to some of the 6th graders at the school. The incident began when the teenage boy's parents noticed that he was gone. His stepfather started looking for him around the neighborhood. The unnamed teen had met Williams at around 1:30 a.m. and they started smoking marijuana in her van. In the meantime, the boy's mother found that there were multiple calls from the same number, later determined to be Williams's, on their home phone call log. When the woman dialed the number, the boy realized that his absence had been discovered and asked the school worker to drop him off near his house. When questioned by his parents, he admitted that he'd smoked marijuana with Williams and that he'd been to the woman's home to spend time with her son. No inappropriate physical relations were reported at any time between the teen and the school worker. Williams was nevertheless arrested on charges of child abuse without great harm and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Number 7. Julie Hoover. While she was employed at the Point of Grace Christian School in Perry, Florida, mathematics teacher Julie Hoover, aged 39, repeatedly behaved salaciously towards her students, resulted in 2 separate arrests. In June of 2022, Hoover was arrested after the mother of a high school senior found explicit messages from the teacher on her son's phone. Hoover was reportedly trying to arrange for the teenager to sneak into her home while her husband was at work. The teacher was charged with soliciting or engaging in sexual conduct with a student by an authority figure. She was released on bond, but a few months later, on September the 6th, she was arrested again. The latest detainment stemmed from her behavior during the Point of Grace Christian School's prom on April the 8th of 2022. School staff had alcohol in the back, which they'd planned to drink after the students had left. Hoover, however, started drinking from the supply early. She at one point forced the straw from her cup into the mouth of an unnamed male student. Hoover also repeatedly twerked on the student each time he got onto or even near the dance floor. It remained unclear if he was the same high schooler she'd been accused of inappropriately messaging. The student reported that her behavior had made him feel uncomfortable. Staff reportedly intervened to the extent that they got in between Hoover and the teen when she twerked on him. For the prom incident, the teacher was charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor and soliciting or engaging in sexual conduct against a student by an authority figure. A working relationship with the school was terminated in the aftermath, and Hoover hadn't entered a plea as of the latest information available on the case. Number 6. Hiromi Adams. In April of 2022, first grade teacher Hiromi Adams was sent to the nurse's office by staff at the Hammett Bowen Elementary School in Marion County, Florida. The decision came after she was reportedly witnessed exhibiting concerning behavior. 37-year-old Adams briefly went to the bathroom before leaving the school. Administrators and the resource officer suspected that the teacher attempted to hide something as she headed out and conducted a search of the bathroom. They found a pill bottle labeled with the teacher's name. It contained a red straw, half of a green pill, and a small plastic baggie of green powder, which when tested proved to be MDMA. A Marion County Sheriff's Office deputy located Adams off campus and arrested her. She was searched and found to be in possession of Suboxone, a drug used to treat the symptoms of opioid withdrawal. Adams was arrested for drug possession, and her actions were considered particularly dangerous since the bathroom in which she'd hidden the drugs was also used by students. Number 5. Caroline Lee. Within days of being named Teacher of the Year in the fall of 2021, a 60-year-old educator was arrested for allegedly hitting a female student at the Darnell Cookman School in Duval County, Florida. The incident began with a social media dispute. The school made a laudatory Instagram post announcing Caroline Lee's recent acknowledgement. An unnamed student from the school who was not in Lee's class questioned the achievement given the teacher's use of the N-word in the classroom. Like Lee, the student was also white. The teacher replied that her utterance of the slur occurred in the context of discussing John Steinbeck's book of Mice and Men, and that she was merely quoting the author. A back and forth ensued during which the angry student reportedly expressed, among other threats, her wishes for Lee to die. The teacher didn't report the incident to school management, but a few days later asked the student to come to her classroom to discuss her threats. It was reported that Lee walked aggressively with the student as they headed to the classroom. Two versions of how the meeting unfolded emerged in the aftermath. The student claimed that the 5'2", 117-pound teacher closed the door before she reached across the table and struck her in the face with the heel of her palm, causing a nosebleed. The student said that she struggled to defend herself as the teacher continued striking her in the head while shouting out expletives. The girl was then ordered to leave, and she subsequently reported her alleged attacker. Lee was arrested for child abuse but adamantly maintained her innocence and passed a polygraph test. She couldn't account for the student's nosebleed, but the incident took place at the time of COVID-19 mask mandates, and Lee noted that she hadn't seen the student without her mask on. In August of 2022, the Duval County State Attorney's Office announced that it would not pursue charges against Lee. Several aspects were taken into consideration, including the discrepancy in height between the teacher and the much taller student, as well as the latter's motivation to report the incident in an effort to avoid another disciplinary action from the school administration. Lee was cleared to return to teaching, but an agreement between the girl's mother and an assistant state attorney prevented her from going back to Darnell Cookman, where she'd taught for 8 years. Lee spoke out in the aftermath, telling the media, "I was guilty before proven innocent," and criticized school officials for doing nothing to protect her and disavowing her in statements to the press and parents. Lee stated, "I'm not pointing fingers, but the system is broken." Number 4. Nicole Dufault. On the eve of her criminal trial in January of 2020, a former teacher from New Jersey pleaded guilty to 3 counts of aggravated criminal sexual contact. 40-year-old Nicole Dufault was arrested in 2014 after she was accused of having relations with at least 6 male students at Columbia High School between 2013 and 2014. Her out-of-control behavior came to light after a video of her performing an oral act on a student was posted on social media. All of the victims were black, and some reported that the abuse had started when they were freshmen or sophomores. For her part, Dufault claimed that the teens had initiated the illicit relationships and that she was powerless to resist them due to a brain injury that inhibited her impulse control. Following her guilty plea in March of 2021, Dufault was given a suspended 3-year sentence in order to register as an offender, remain on parole for life, and give up her teaching license. A number of her victims had already sued her and the school district. While the legal proceedings unfolded, in the aftermath of her sentencing in summer of 2021, 3 more victims came forward with lawsuits that delved deeper into Dufault's depravity One student reported that the teacher had started grooming him when he was a freshman during a 2011 summer program for students with learning disabilities run by the district and the non-profit organization Family Connections. The teacher's advances escalated when the student became a junior, as she started sending him explicit texts and nude images. Dufault and the student at some point left the school together, and she performed an oral act on him in her car. Another victim, in a separate lawsuit, reported that Dufault handpicked him to be in her class after she'd gotten to know him during the same summer school program. She reportedly lavished the teen with cash and gifts. Dufault at one point gave him a pair of sneakers, which he described as one of the best gifts he had ever received. Dufault then reportedly told him that he needed to do something for her, saying, "I want you to take me right here and now." The incident marked the first time that the teacher had coerced him into having relations with her. He stated in the lawsuit that he was abused at least 200 times from that point on. Much like with the other victims, many instances of abuse took place on school grounds, in the teacher's car or her classroom. Another victim recounted 8 to 9 incidents in which he had relations with Dufault. One of the parents' lawyers offered further insights into the teacher's behavior towards her victims, saying that she spoke with them about lewd actions, brushed up against their bodies and touched intimate and personal parts of their bodies in front of other students in the social group. Dufault was accused of preying on her victims, who were described as vulnerable and intellectually disabled. She also allegedly altered attendance records to account for when she pulled the teens out of class to abuse them. A common aspect among the June 2021 lawsuits was that the plaintiffs alleged discrimination by the school, its district and Dufault, Family Connections, and the New Jersey Department of Child Protection and Permanency on the basis of race, age, and gender. The outcome of the multiple lawsuits remained unclear. Number 3. Raekwon Smith. In April of 2024, a Las Vegas substitute teacher was arrested for brawling with a student in the hallway of the Valley High School. A video of the altercation went viral across multiple social media platforms and was picked up by numerous news outlets. According to an arrest report, the incident unfolded following a classroom argument that spilled into the hallway. The male high schooler, who appeared to be white, had called 27-year-old sub Raekwon Smith a racial slur. It remained unclear, however, who'd initiated the physical altercation. The most widely circulated clip of the brawl showed Smith being held back while the student charged him and started swinging wild punches. Some of them landed on the sub's face, prompting him to retaliate with his own barrage of strikes, one of which knocked the high schooler rigidly to the ground. Smith then stood over the student as he cowered and covered his face. The teacher bent over, struck him again, and remained in an aggressive stance, yelling at him before eventually walking away. As classmates helped the student off the floor, he reportedly laughed and yelled at Smith, "You're going to jail," before calling him a slur once more. The student was arrested on unspecified charges, while the teacher was charged with battery, resulting in serious bodily harm, assault of a school pupil on school property, interfering with a student from attending school, and threatening to do bodily harm to a public school student. Smith, who'd started working for the Clark County School District in November of 2023, was removed from the substitute teacher pool and was no longer eligible to work with the district. In the scandal's wake, 2 students sided with Smith and claimed that he'd only defended himself throughout the incident. They launched a GoFundMe to pay for his legal expenses. Today's topic was requested by the Hedge X1, Bettina Mitchell 3535 and Nina Briesch 4184. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Ryan Fish. In the spring of 2018, a former substitute teacher at a high school in Connecticut was arrested following accusations that he was running a fight club in his classroom. Ryan Fish's disturbing activities at Montville High School were uncovered in December of 2017 after a social worker reported that a male teenager was traumatized after being robbed and beaten by his classmates. An investigation revealed that 22-year-old Fish not only allowed slap boxing fights to take place in the classroom, but that he encouraged the bouts, set timed rounds, and allowed students to record them as they cheered and egged on the fighters. In one video, 2 students slapped each other at full force while the visibly present teacher instructed them to get away from the door. Another video showed Fish moving a trash can out of the way in order to prolong an ongoing fight. According to a student who was present in the classroom, that bout ended when one of the combatants threw up and was holding his head. A different clip showed Fish separating two students with outstretched arms before signaling them to start slapping each other. Following his arrest, the teacher admitted that he'd allowed and overseen a total of 4 fights in his classroom during school hours between September and October of 2017. Fish, however, maintained that it was his way of getting close to the students, telling investigators, "The truth is, I'm an idiot and wanted to befriend them." Fish said that he wanted to kind of have a social thing, adding, "I would let them be teenagers and let them get their energy out." He was fired from his job and charged with 2 counts of risk of injury to a child, 4 counts of reckless endangerment and 1 count of breach of peace. Updates from October of 2018 indicated that prosecutors had dropped the charges in lieu of Fish completing a probation program. Montville Superintendent Brian Levesque had also been criminally charged after officials had failed for months to report the Fight Club's existence. The charges against Levesque, who at one point described the incident in Fish's classroom as student slapping horseplay, were also eventually dropped. Number 1. Lydia Johnson. In 2017, a Spanish teacher at Dakota High School in Macomb County, Michigan, was arrested after stealing from the school to support her gambling addiction. Lydia Johnson oversaw ticket sales for Dakota's 2016 homecoming dance and for a 60-person student and parent trip to Camp Tamarack. Based on attendance, ticket sales for the first activity should have brought in $30,000, but 29-year-old Johnson only deposited $11,000 for the trip to Camp Tamarack. The teacher should have collected and deposited $13,000, but only $500 was recorded. When the camp's attempts to collect the money failed, they contacted school officials, and Johnson's criminal activity unraveled. Staff found empty homecoming deposit envelopes in her classroom along with several casino receipts. The sheriff's department was contacted, and it emerged that Johnson had recently made cash deposits to her accounts that were far in excess of her salary. MGM casino records indicated that the teacher spent more than $90,000 there in 2016 playing penny slots. In April, Johnson pleaded no contest to embezzlement between $200 and $1,000, a misdemeanor punishable by up to 1 year in jail. She was sentenced to 2 years of probation, in addition to being ordered to seek treatment for gambling addiction and have no contact with the school. Johnson was also ordered to repay the pilfered $30,000 to the Chippewa Valley School District. Thanks for watching. For a year, would you rather teach high school or work on an oil rig? Let us know in the comments section below.